Originally, I wasn't a programmer. I didn't knew nothing about computers, and then computers came into everyday life. So I taught myself how to program, and really games was sort of like not an easier path, but it was an easier path to do because you could go down the arcades or you can go into a pub and see the video machines, and I attempted to copy a few of those just to get going really, and that's how it got started. To be quite honest, getting into the games industry was just a chance really. Just something just happened, came along, and somebody offered me a job. And that's how I got in. I don't think anybody foresee what the industry was going to be now from what it was then. To become one of the biggest leisure industry in the world, and it's growing bigger and bigger every year. I don't think anyone saw that, really, not as big as it actually is. And to be quite honest, for me, games is a pleasure. It's getting paid for a hobby. I worked for Virgin Games before I started the Bitmap Brothers, and it was the three of us that got together and said we wanted to write this game, and then that became the Bitmap Brothers. It just fell into place yet again, and it was a case of when we had the games design, we needed some money, so we went to the bank and got an overdraft, and then we found a publisher to publish it, and. I suppose really, if anyone wants to start a games company now, it's probably exactly the same way that you do it. Apart from it's a little bit easier to do self-publishing, but the thing with self-publishing, you need a lot of money behind you, and that's where publishers, when they're paying advances, actually help out. You need a bigger team now. Games are bigger. Technology's more. There's more technology. There's more to do. I don't think the formula for coming up with the game has changed at all. It's it's still very similar. It's just gone from, when you did a game on the Amiga or the ST, it was on one floppy disk. Once the CD came in, it's all of a sudden I can't remember how many floppies do you get in a CD. It's thousands, and you have to. You don't have to, but you tend to fill the content. And then we got Blu-ray, and now we've got downloadable stuff, which is infinite, really. And so it really is all to do nowadays with the amount of content you want to put in, and that decides on the team size and how long a game costs and how much money. Content doesn't mean that a game is going to be a AAA title. You can get some smaller games that are not so much content, which can still be AAA titles, and great gameplay. Great gameplay is the thing that counts more than anything else. I think the thing with the Bitmap Brothers games is number one, we wanted to write games that we wanted to play. So therefore, if you want to play a game, you're going to put a lot more into it, and to make sure that the gameplay is absolutely perfect, because it's how you see you want to play it and how you want other people to play it. That's not quite the right words, not how you want other people, but how other people should be able to see it. And the other thing is that we spent a lot of time on not just the game design, but we spent time and money on the graphics, on the best programming, the best sound, the best sound effects, the best music. And so really what made Bitmap Brothers games special in those days is that we concentrated on everything, where a lot of other developers tended to not concentrate on it 100%. The sound might not be that good, or the graphics might not be good, and in some cases it was poor gameplay. I don't think it's actually changed from then till now, apart from the content. People expect a lot more. If I produce something like Zonoman, which is just 4 levels, I don't think it would do very well in this market. even if it had the best gameplay in the world, it's just not. People expect a lot more playability. Not more playability as in playtime, not just something that you could play. I mean, I don't know what the average gameplay for a game now is. I mean, some games are like massive. I mean, I'm playing Zelda at the moment, and I've been playing it since it came out every day, and I'm still not even halfway through. But even some of the other games I've played, that have got a smaller gameplay, you still get 40 or 50 hours of gameplay. Xenon didn't have that. It had, I don't know, probably about 8. Well, I think people can get very blindfolded and actually believe in something that actually no one else is going to play. I remember once dealing with a developer that wanted that did a PC game but didn't want to use the normal keys that a normal game would use. The A, W, S, D. They want to use something completely different. We said the problem is people won't play it. And they were really, really, really determined, and they actually decided, no, we're going to do what we want. And then it went to press, and the press slated it, and then they had to change it before the release. So I think that's the same with gameplay to an extent. Is that if you want to be successful in a game, it's got to appeal to the whole market or to a bigger market as possible. But there again, there are niches, aren't there? I mean, at the moment, there's a lot of racing games around, which is like not everyone wants to play, but they're big business. But the massive games really tend to be to appeal to all lots of different ages and lots of different types of people. So I suppose really, it's getting it right, it's getting that balance right, really. They can compete. Whether they're competing on the same level is a different matter. Obviously, if you got I don't know, let's say like an EA game where they've spent millions and millions and millions. As an independent developer is not going to have the same quality of content or the quantity of content, as these big companies. But it doesn't mean that it's a lesser game. I think the biggest problem that independent developers have got is a case of marketing. Really, their marketing, they haven't got the marketing money, behind like the big companies have got. They can't do the TV advertising and the big marketing, so they have to concentrate on more social media and get marketing way through that, which is relatively cheap in consideration. But you're still gonna struggle in hitting, the majority of the world, if you like. You can concentrate it in an area and do very well. I'm not putting them down. It's just that when we're talking about competition between the small guys and the big guys are always going to win. I'm afraid they got the most money. There are independent games that come out and do extremely well. It's just, in some respects, you've got to have a bit of luck as well. You've got to have, if you hit the right people, finding the right people is impossible. The social people that will promote a game and stuff like that, they find the game. The game doesn't find them. If you know what I mean, they pick up the game. Oh, this is really good, and then it can explode. But getting it to those people is virtually, I think, impossible, and that comes down to luck. That some of these, it's not impossible, but it's really hard. And it could be something. It could be something just like, I think really somebody's picked something up, does something on YouTube, done something on YouTube that makes it, maybe puts a bit of humour into it. Lots of people see it, and then it just escalates from there. And really, to a certain extent, that's luck. I'm sorry, but you have to put a lot of effort into trying to get that luck. I believe you make your own luck. Luck comes along if you work on something hard enough. Luck should come along your way somewhere. Do it, do it, do it. I'm too old now. You know, I've been there, done it, got the badge, and I'm not being big-headed, but now I'm at an age where I just want to settle back at the moment. I mean, I'm still working, I'm still programming, but I'm working for bigger companies, doing consultancy and freelance work. But you know, all the young guys out there want to do it. But if you do it, make sure you've got the funds to do it. You know, and to build up and have a dream and try to get your dream to come true. Absolutely no idea whatsoever. I mean, every day, every year you think things have reached a height and then new things come out. I mean, now we're looking at VR and altered reality, you know, as the next big step. Is that going to happen? Well, you know what? There's a lot of people investing a lot of money in that stuff at the moment. I don't think it will become. I mean, let's look at what happens with the Xbox and to a certain extent with the PlayStation, with the Kinect and the what would be the Move, I think, wasn't it, on the Sony? I mean, that was supposed to be the next best thing, and that seems to have died a death a little bit now. We did one of the companies I was with, we did a lot of work on that stuff, and we got all this motion stuff working really well, but it's not going to happen. Is VR and AR going to come that way? I mean, we've had VR around for since 1990 anyway, but I think it has the same problems that it has now. There's lots of problems in motion sickness with it. But I think the biggest problem is the price of the hardware. I think it's just a bit too expensive for somebody to go out and spend £1,800 on a pair of glasses, if you like. And mind you, if someone can buy an Apple phone at £1,000, they can afford anything, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know, and I think that's the hardest thing, is to see where the future is. And to be quite honest, games that do well got brilliant gameplay, and that's what makes games, and the content. And you know, I think that the formula from what it was in the 1980s till now hasn't changed an awful lot, and I don't think it will change an awful lot really. It just become bigger, you know, more immersing, you know, into games, and VR and AR might actually do that as well. We need to get things more realistic and stuff, we need faster hardware and stuff like that. But you know, are we going to see Sony and Xbox coming out with a next step of consoles in the next 4 or 5 years? I'm not sure we will. I think, you know, it's like PC CPUs and RAM that they've almost hit, you know, the point of can't get any better unless it's a total redesign of electronics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, screen technology might change. You know, I mean, it'd be quite interesting when we have this wallpaper that we put on and it becomes a TV screen. You know, that's interesting, but it's not going to change how a game plays, is it really? Well, I mean, you know, I'm not being funny, but you know, that's a PlayStation controller. That's a Switch controller. I don't know where the Xbox controller is, but they're virtually the same as what they were. Well, they're a move on from joysticks, aren't they? But they're not much more. You know, I think people will be using, you know, controllers like that forever. With smartphones, yeah, I mean, basically you've got a PC in your hand to an extent. You know, much more powerful. Okay, smaller screen. It suits smaller games and more fun games. But it's a different market. People, you know, and we've also got free to play, obviously, mobile, which to be quite honest, it's a real minefield, really, isn't it? I mean, the biggest problem that you've got with free-to-play games is you've got to get somebody interested in playing the game more than half a minute. If you don't catch them in half a minute, they go off and get another one and another one and another one. And the market is flooded out there with games. Similarly, you know, going back to the original mobile market, that got flooded, and the only games that really sold were the games that began with A, because they were top of the list because it was the first letter of the alphabet. You know, by the time you got to B, you had gone past 3 or 4 pages of games and people didn't want to go any further. So it's really hard. I think at the moment I've done a few. I've got a mobile game that's not been published, and I don't think we'll ever publish it now. It's not a Bitmap game, but it's something I do with somebody else. You know, I know what the market is. I've done a couple of mobile games, smart games, a couple of years ago. It comes down to money, and the problem is with the free-to-play games, making money is extremely hard. And if you're doing it, if you're serious and you're making a living out of doing these things, the risk I think is too high. If you do it as a hobby, and you put a game out and you earn 20 quid, or you might earn 20,000 quid, I don't know, depends on how it does. It doesn't matter, does it? But you know, people doing it for a living, it does matter. And you know, and there's also, there seems to be a lot in the mobile market. There seems to be a lot of games that are very similar. I think for console and PC games, I don't think people will make any money out of it, and I don't think, and then it will destroy the games industry. You know, you'll get the people like EA that will be able to do it and make a lot of money, but then we'll whittle it down to just a few publishers in the end and a few games. You know, and that's not what we want. You know. And the problem is with microtransactions is they're almost, to a certain extent, we're almost relying on psychiatrists. What's the word? I can't think of the word. Scientists, in some respects, actually designing games so that they can maximise the amount of microtransactions, not necessarily the gameplay. You know, and some microtransaction stuff is just almost like it's cheating, isn't it? Because, you know, people like to pay for something when it gives them an advantage. And if it gives you an advantage, well, is that a cheat? I don't know. Does it spoil the gameplay? Possibly. I don't particularly like that. Buying a game and then you can buy extensions to it. You know, like you can buy an extra rifle and stuff like that. And I just think, well, I've paid for the game anyway. Why isn't that free? Because the game's not any cheaper. Well, first of all, if I play games until I finish them. If I get past the first chapter, should we say, I will finish the game, come what may. A few games I've got to like 90% and haven't because I've got bored, but that's very few. Most of them I'll finish to the end. I've had quite a few games I've never got past the first chapter. And, you know, some I've only played for 2 or 3 minutes and gone, don't like this. I'm not saying they're crap, don't like them. But the first thing I do is I phone a few friends up and say, what are you playing at the moment? And then they tell me what the games they're playing and what they play, because they tend to play games a lot more quicker than I do. They don't play them so immense, they play them just to finish. And then I ask them questions about the game, and then I make up my mind up from there. And 9 times out of 10, the games I'm playing are good to play, and I'll finish. You know, but I play mainly RPGs. Really, I just like to be immersed into a game in that way, you know, where you can build your character up and your stuff. And you know, it's like with the new Zelda. I've never played Zelda. I've played Zelda on the Game Boy once, and I played it for 5 minutes and got rid of it. But the new Zelda on the Switch is absolutely brilliant. Those what they call Courier Seeds, there's 900 of them. Well, I'm determined to get all 900. I doubt if I ever will, because I think some of them are going to be really hard to find. But that's the sort of game that I like. It's like Skyrim, really. There's another one, and I don't know, can't remember any other games. Got a few up there. I think the thing is just to make sure, just to follow your heart, really, and just, you know, and get it right, and don't be too proud to drop something that isn't working, you know. But hopefully that shouldn't happen, should it? A new developer should come out with a great idea, follow it through, goes to market, makes some money, they feel better. You know, and good luck to everyone that does it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not doing it anymore, but you know, I've put my whole life into this industry. I put all my money into this industry to an extent, and I'm not rich at all from all the games that I've done, because you know it's tough out there, mate.